Hello, gang. Why the sad music? I don't agree with the sad music. Anyway, hi. I am here. Apparently Sam is here as well. Hello, hope you're doing well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to everyone here. Of course, the music is kind of loud. I'll see if I can... I mean, this song always hits hard. I don't know why. It didn't play your song? It should have. Should have, because the mixed up audio was... I heard it. I heard it for certain, 100%. But you didn't hear it? Interesting. I'll look into that after stream. I'm not gonna do that right now. Also, let me up this so you can see my face better. Hi. Take your time, Sam, on doing Poké-Commander, or like on getting ready, because I did want to try the Poké-Doku for today. And not unlimited mode, to daily puzzle. Yeah. It is indeed just us today. For today it is. Okay, so let's see. What not fully evolved poison type would people not type very often? What's a poison type that people don't think about often? In general. We'll get in coal. Scorpii is a... I feel like Gen 4 is a generation that people think about a lot. I feel like Skrelp is probably like a better answer. That's a 3.3, 100%. Poison Dragon. Well, okay. So here we got Dragalge is one of them. Eternatus is the other. There's two Eternatus. And then there's a Dragalge and a Mega Dragalge. I'm gonna guess Baby Dragalge. Oh man, I feel like there are 4 options, and I took one that's slightly ass. This is probably Galarian Slowking. There's probably a better one. Another Galar Poison type. You know what? Sure. We'll do Galarian Slowking. There's a lot of not fully evolved psychic types, but let's do like Spoink, because not a lot of people think about this Pokemon yet. You're in the call? Excellent. I'll get with you shortly. A Dragon Psychic type, there's a bunch of those. There's Latios and Latios. There's Ultra Necrozma. I feel like that's probably gonna be the big one. Still 27%. Are there more Dragon Psychic types? There probably are, but... A Galarian Psychic type. There's a Hatterene line. I feel like Galarian Ponyta is not something a lot of people think about, yeah. Not fully evolved water type, there's like 5 million of them, but I'm gonna go with Finneon, like one of the most forgettable Pokemon of all time. There you go. Water Dragon. Let's go Dracovish, I guess. I feel like a lot of people will do Kingdra or Palkia. I want to do Dracovish. In the Galarian water type, well... you know, Cramorant, maybe? Is that an idea? My music just dead? Or is it just really quiet? I don't hear it. Yeah, it's just on quiet side. Okay. Let's do Cramorant here. Let's go to the game stats. The least common was actually Eternatus. Oh, Naganadel was another Dragon Poison type. Yeah, so I picked the second most common one. Okay, cool. Tentacool was the least picked. That's crazy, by the way. That's a Gen 1 Pokemon. It's the least picked Pokemon. Where was I on the spectrum? I was like pretty high up. Well, Scrub was still 3.3, but that's still pretty high up, all things considered. And like Bellsprout is also like in the top 3, which is like 5 of the top 4 is Gen 1, which is nuts. Toxtricity Amped Gmax is the least guessed Poison Galar Pokemon, but Slowking Galar was the second least guessed, so I kind of cooked on this one. Weezing Galar is the most guessed, yeah, that makes sense. Beldum is the least guessed not fully evolved Psychic type, and after that's Execute? Oh my god. Where am I on? Spoink is like somewhere in the middle. No, actually no, not at all. I picked I picked the most common dragon psychic type. That's crazy. Mega Latios. Oh my god. Go fuck yourself. Cali Ice. I guess all the Calyrex forms. Going to Galar is like once again on the higher side, but not the highest. Somehow the Hatterene line is the highest. Froakie is the least guessed water type. That's nuts. There's like a lot of these. Not fully evolved water types. There's like so many. Mine is here, Finneon. Why is this near the top? Is it like top 6? Huh? Am I just completely missing the point of the game? Okay, I'm like halfway here with the Dracovish pick. Droopy Tatsugiri. Nice. Awesome. Urshifu Rapid Strike is the least guessed water type in Galar. Cramorant's like somewhere in the middle. Yeah, okay, sure. Whatever, man. You can join PCM Sunday. That's the code for today. Let me just undeafen. And here you go. Hello, Sam.
Hello.
Oh god, we're playing Terapagos again today.
Are you shocked at all?
Nope. No, actually, not at all, no.
Heads, tails.
Let's go for tails. God damn it.
I'm going first.
You're going first?
I'm going first.
Alright. This is an interesting opening hand, that's for sure.
Remember to put your
prizes. Yeah, I clicked the setup button, so it already priced 6 cards for me. I don't think it told me to mulligan. Yeah, it gave me 0 mulligans. Okay. What do I start with? These are both kind of ass to start with, but I guess I'll do this one. Music is loud again. What is this? I hate it. Alright. Good luck, have fun. Here you go.
Yep.
Oh wait, my Hydreigon is gone. Hold on.
Alrighty.
Hold on. My Hydreigon is poof because I clicked the setup button. Give me a sec. Luckily for me, it is in my deck. I didn't look at the rest of the cards. I have not looked at any other cards of the deck, I swear.
Incorrect deck check.
So I always put my commander at like the first slot of the thing, so if I click sorted, it's always the first card there, you know.
Alright, I drew my own card.
Bro drew.
Alrighty.
It's gonna draw blood. What?
Battle compressor.
Oh shit! Battle compressor in the opener. That's not good for me.
What the hell do you think I'm discarding?
Water energy.
Here's a hint. It's water energy.
Yeah, I figured. I figured. Wait, I'm getting texted. Hold on. Oh, no, we're good. Just a family group chat, nothing too important. Someone's multi-posting about a concert they've been to. I can look at that later.
Alright, free water energy.
Yep.
Alrighty. Here we go, Trainer's Main.
Oh my god. Hello, Strategic. Why are you scared? Why are you scared, Strategic? You can tell me.
We win those. I'm gonna get battle.
Oh
VIP
my
back.
god, he got battle VIP bets off of that. No! No!
Bench Origin Form Palkia and
oh my god, I'm getting rolled here. I'm getting eye rolled. This is cringe.
And
you got driver's license test tomorrow. Ooh, good luck, good luck. You got it for sure. Don't worry about it.
Hold on. Oh, I'm that guy.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Did you misplay this turn? How?
No, I said I could actually do things this turn.
Oh, I just misheard. Okay, cool. I don't know how I heard the word misplay, but
disregard all that. We're gonna get you, and I know he's in here. You.
all right.
Actually, hold on. No, we're not gonna get Tutu. I'm gonna get. This is the big brain play.
Oh boy.
Ditto.
Oh, dear God.
I'm gonna play Ditto. I'm gonna catch an air balloon. I'm gonna retreat into Ditto.
Holy shit. Ditto. Oh my God. Mind you, this is all turn 1 going first, by the way. My guy has not played a supporter. My guy has not played a supporter. This is the power of colorless Pokemon in this format. It's crazy. Everyone can do this if they want to.
I'll put Commander into play. I'll draw one card. Speaking.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the Blizzard Rondo, yeah. Not the Fleet-Footed.
And I'll attack your third.
Yeah.
And I will pass.
Oh. I'll draw a card for turn. I'll bench Dano.
Guys, Poké is not broken, I swear.
Yeah, definitely not.
When is he gonna ban Fan Rotom? That's the real question.
I honestly don't think Fan Rotom is that ban worthy, especially not if you have one copy in like 100 card deck. It's just that when you hit it, it's so crazy though. Like it's so jarring. Okay, I'm gonna bench Unknown and use Engage to shuffle my hand into my deck and draw 4 cards, and if you want to, you can do the same.
I will not do that.
That's valid. My hand was Gigabricked, so...
I have quite a solid hand for turn 2.
Alright, cool.
I know, onto the bench.
Guzma, Ditto Prism Star.
That's just rude.
Push Unknown. Bench Fez. And use Intrepid Sword. None of these are Metal Energy. I mean, I don't have to tell you if they're Metal Energy or not, but that's end of turn because of Intrepid Swords.
Okay, so I know what deck this is.
Do you?
Well, you the Smeargle, and you have the Metal type. That must mean it's Goldengo and Smeargle.
It's a little more than that.
I'm gonna draw my card. Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's really funny.
I forgot how to drive. No, you got it. Don't worry. Dude. What is funny?
The card I got. Because I could just kill your stuff with Greninja. What I could also do something.
I mean, you're bench locked, so how would you play the Greninja?
There's a Ditto, and I have a Noctowl in my hand.
You know, you make a good point. Actually, you make a good rate point. Man, I should have played my N that I just had in my hands. I should have played my N. It would have given you so many more cards, but N probably was better there.
And then I will get a...
Yeah, he's gonna get either Skyfield or Area Zero.
Table, Area Zero, Underdepths. Table, Irida. I'll play Area Zero, Underdepths.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will use
yep.
Irida to get a water Pokemon and an evolution. The water Pokemon I get will be Palkia.
An evolution?
The item card I'll get. I'm gonna get an evolution with the item.
Yeah, okay, yeah. You said I play Irida, which allows me to grab a water Pokemon and an evolution, and I was like, that's not entirely right, but... yeah, okay.
And with Dive Ball, I'll get this here, Radiant Greninja.
Mm-hmm.
I'll evolve into Palkia, I'll play down Greninja.
Oh my god.
I'll use Star Portal, E-Star Power, toggle the marker, and I will attach all of these here energy to this Greninja.
Mm-hmm.
I'll attach Twin Energy to my Terapagos for turn. I'll play Prime Catcher.
He has the fucking Prime! There's no fucking way! Oh my god. What are you gusting?
To pull up, I don't know, Dino or something. Actually, no, I'll pull up Zacian with the Prime Catcher.
Yep. Dude, I'm getting, like... dude, this is like the craziest turn 1 and 2 I've seen of this deck.
Knock out your Unknown and your Dino.
This is like the craziest turn 1 and 2 I've seen. It's fucked. Okay, I'll draw a card for turn.
For the course at this point.
Bench Ditto.
Oh, he's got Ditto. Does he have
Ultra Ball. Goldengo Metal.
Strategic, this isn't crazy, this is just normal.
Shut up.
I mean, go check the VODs. It happens every single time.
Okay, and off that Ultra Ball, I will grab...
Noah, do you play Bench Barrier in this by any chance?
I'm not gonna tell you that.
You better get it out this turn or that Ditto's dead.
Grab Radiant Jirachi. Bench Radiant Jirachi. Oh, that's a rescue. Sorry, I did not mean to promote a rescue stretcher. I meant to play it.
Rescue stretcher.
And I will shuffle all 3 Pokemon into my deck. They know Unknown E and Goldengo. I'll then bench Crobat V and draw 6 cards off of Dark Acid.
Oh, of course, that's Crobat. Close enough. Did any Crobat, same thing.
And then I'll use Phesandipity's Flip the Script to draw 3. I'll bump the Area 0 with Moonlight Stadium.
Boo. Alright, I'm just gonna get rid of Noctowl.
Okay. Not really grabbing what I want to. Play Mysterious Treasure. Discard a Psychic Energy. Grab Oricorio.
Bigger Mew want right here. Oh, Oricorio.
Bench Oricorio, use Dancer Tribute to draw 3.
Yeah.
Fog Crystal. To grab Gimme Ghoul.
I'm drawing a lot of turns, drawing a lot of cards.
I'm drawing a little more. Maybe play Gladion as my supporter for turn.
Wow, all the cards.
Yeah, this is proper fucked what I'm seeing here, mostly. Not really. I have to grab this. Do I have to grab that? Fuck, I don't know. I think I do. Hold on. Yeah, I probably do. I have to grab this. execute. And then I'll use Intrepid Sword to look at the top 3 cards of my deck and add them all to my hands. And that's my turn.
Oh boy. I'll draw for turn.
That was a lot of cards. I drew like 12 cards this turn. Question. If I own an old VS Seeker, like the really old one, can you play it in Expanded or not? Yeah, you can. You can.
I'll play Aqua Patch.
Because the functionality of VS Seeker has not changed. Like if you have an old Quick Ball from like Gen 4 that has different functionality from modern Quick Ball, then you're not allowed to play that. That's kind of like the gist of it.
Play Earthen Vessel, discard, execute, get some energy.
Oh my god, and he has to execute discard. Fuck, bro. That's crazy.
That was my starting hand.
I should have just played N, man. I had an option between N and Unknown on turn 1, and I should have.
The other very helpful item in my hand, that energy switch.
Oh, fuck me.
Energy to Ninja. And I'll use Moonlight Shuriken to knock out Ditto and Radiant Jirachi. Since Radiant Jirachi is not in the active, you don't get to look for cards.
Mm-hmm.
Now take 2 prizes.
Yeah. Should I rock up with my Lightning Box deck, man? Hit this guy for weakness for you. We might.
Last week and it didn't work.
True, it did not work. All right. Did I draw my card for turn or no? Not yet.
And I can draw 5 trillion cards this turn, again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I have to do this. VS Seeker is the card I got from prizes. VS Seeker for Guzma, Guzma up to Palkia. I'll push my Oricorio because it has free retreats for now. Ben Zorua, Ben Shrudel. Fetch. Dark to Shrudel.
Ninja again this turn. Shrudel. Oh wait, that's got the same attack as Goldango, doesn't it? I'm certain it does. Hold on, let me look.
Energy Search Pro.
It does. ESP. What?
For these cards. That's the biggest table I've ever seen in this application, by the way. Hold on. I need to select all of these cards and yoink them to my hands.
What are you attacking with? I don't get it.
I don't think I'm attacking this turn. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't attack this turn.
Dance of Tributes, draw 3.
Unless he's playing Band Wally.
Good Rod, flip heads. So that means I recover a Pokemon or train. No, it's a trainer card. No Pokemon, and I'd put it on top of my deck. Yeah.
This is a Pokemon, Tails is a trainer.
Yeah. Recover this guy. Flip the script.
Oh, your Ditto should be in the Lost Zone, by the way.
Oh, did I not? Oh, you're so right. My bad. Let me just move my thing out. Yeah. Okay. So the thing is, I already filled my bench before. I didn't know I was going to draw into Good Rod. This is. I would have loved to push Jirachi this turn. That's going to have to wait. Yeah, okay, I'll retreat into Zorua. I should have attached to the Zorua so I could have used Ascension. This is such a misplay. I'm assuming I can't change this anymore, right?
Discard that energy from Turtle to retreat. What
do you mean? I Guzman my Oricorio to the active and it has. No, I Guzma'd my Oricorio to the active, and then I free retreated with Moonlight Stadium.
Oh, I forgot Moonlight Stadium. Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm assuming I'm not allowed to attach the Dark Energy to Zorua instead of the Strudel, right?
No. Attach the Strudel like last turn.
No, I did it this turn. I did it this turn for sure.
Yeah, but it was like at the very start.
Yeah, that was like, yeah. I was assuming I wasn't allowed to. Yeah, let's Intrepid Sword and add these to hands. That's turn.
Alright. I'll draw for turn.
Dude, I'm so bad at this game.
I'll go Radiant Ninja.
Mm-hmm.
The wrong thing. Draw one.
Bro, Alakazam I can't sell. Honestly, that would have been funny in this list. Alakazam does kind of fit in this list for that reason. But it's not Alakazam, no. Bro had cardboard for days in his hand. True.
Alright, I'll take Guzma and Hala.
Mm-hmm.
Start a Buddy Puffin and a Stealthy Hood.
Yep.
To search my deck for a Special Energy, a Stadium, and a Tool card.
Mm-hmm.
The tool that I'll get is Floatstone. I'll get Skyfield. And my Special Energy will be Double Colorless, I believe.
Oh man, he has a retreat this turn. Proper companies are knocking at his door. Yeah, this deck is really good at drawing cards. As you can see, by turn 3, I've drawn half my deck.
I'll attach Floatstone and put Skyfield into play.
Mm-hmm.
I'll attach for turn. Put Kricketune V into play.
Yeah.
I'll use
My question is, what has my guy priced? He's got the nuts this game. I have no idea. This barrel might be priced because he started that and he hasn't evolved it yet. But other than that, I don't know.
Shuffle 3 water energy into deck and actually remember to move my Jitter for the Lost Zone as well.
Fair.
And I'll use Kricketune. Draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
I'll retreat Palkia and Suicune V. I'll use Suicune to draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
And I will knock you out.
Yep.
And take a prize.
Push Rio, draw cards. Attach Floatstone. Bench Radiant Jirachi. This is so awkward, man.
Strategic, my prizes aren't that bad.
Bench Ditto. Use Ditto's ability to discard it and bench the Zorua.
Oh, Zorua back into play. Oh boy.
Bench Pidgey.
You have knockout this turn, I wonder.
Bench Azelf and trigger Time Walk.
Time Walk. What the hell?
To get Porygon out of my prizes.
Oh no, you're playing the Porygon Z-level X, aren't you?
And I put this discard back into my prizes. I'll bump the Skyfield with Mount Coronet, so you have to discard 1 and then I discard 3 from my bench.
Oh no, I will lose Fan Rotom. I'm terrified.
I will discard Azelf and Crobat V, and this is the tough decision for me. At this point, I'll discard Zacian V as well.
Timbers. Zashi and B going in the bin.
Mm-hmm.
You must think you're attacking this turn.
Use Dance Tribute to draw 3. This is crazy. I just discarded my 2 bench V Pokemon and I just drew Forest Seal Stone. Oh my god, I hate my life. I hate my life. I'm like so misplaying. I'll also flip the script for 3. Oh, never punished. Never punished. Grafai Gaming.
Brother, Evo Soda?
Yep. I run both Evo Soda and Evolution Incense. Get fucked.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I know what deck. I know what deck you're playing.
Yeah? Do you know what I'm playing?
Well,
Hold
yeah,
on.
obviously energy drop from shock.
210
Like,
HP.
we started.
I'll retreat into Grafai. I'll use Mount Coronet to recover 1 metal energy to my hands. Is there anything else I want to do?
Oh, I love you fumbled.
Yeah, I'll attach a Dark Energy for turn to the Zorua. And then I'll use Colorful Graffiti to discard energies from my hand until as many as I want, basics, and do 40 damage for each discarded. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the knockouts. I need 6, right?
I had a much better line and I missed it.
Draw 2 prizes.
No,
And that's my turn. For fire, what the fuck? It sounds like Wi-Fi but on low speed. Yeah, no, this is a real card. Don't worry. It's like Goldengo at home, but it's a single prizer.
Okay.
Also, it's 90 HP, so it still fucking dies to Radiant Greninja.
There are things that I can do.
There are things you can do. That's crazy. There are things you can do? That's nuts. Ban this guy. We have Goldengo at home. Yeah, but Goldengo is also in this list. Don't worry.
Alright. I think I see what to do. I'm gonna play Percussion's card to pick up Greninja. Put Greninja down and use Moonlight Concealed Guards to draw 2.
Yeah?
I'm gonna play Level Ball.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, with my Level Ball.
That's crazy. Whiffs the level ball.
That was just a deck search.
Just a deck search. Do you hear this fella?
But yeah, I'm gonna attach for turn. I'm gonna play the Dene.
Okay. Alright.
I'm gonna draw 6.
Hold on, I kind of want to see what you discarded. Ooh. Kirin, Pokegear, Water, DCE, and Iono. Bro doesn't believe Finning is winning.
I'll play Good Rod, and I'll flip heads. Boo!
Good Rod are goated cards.
I'm gonna whiff the Good Rod. Can I do that?
Let me read. I don't think you can. Hold on, I can't click on yours. I'll just click on mine. You can't fill it. Because the thing is, discard pile is public information, so I know you have a Pokemon in your discard pile, so you have to do it.
What do I want?
No.
I guess I'll execute on top of my deck.
Okay. No, Good Rod is way better than Ordinary Rod. Look at this. You just recover Trainer if you flip tails. Well, technically it means recovering an item, but like it's really good.
I'll play Energy Recycler, put energy back into the deck.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm really annoyed that you bumped my areas, my sky field.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
I would have loved to use Badoo this turn, but alas. I'll play Timer Ball.
One head.
And I'll get the barrel and evolve into the barrel.
I was about to say, when does Babero get some action?
Draw 2. I still have attachment for turn, so I'm gonna get Patia's Bucket. Get 2 water energy. I'm gonna attach turn 2 Greninja.
Mm-hmm.
Retreat Palkia into Terapagos, and I will knock out your Grafai Eye.
Yep.
Take out the prize.
Ori and draw.
I really wish I could play 2 energy switches in this deck. It would be so nice.
Evolve into Zoroark GX.
Darn it, he got it. He's got Zoroark.
Bench Porygon. Evolve to Pidgeotto.
Pidgeotto.
Use Mount Coronet to recover 2 metal energy. Energy Recycler. 4. These 5 energies. Man. My hand's so full of garbage. Dance of Tribute to draw 3. Flip the script to draw 3. This is interesting.
Got all the draw power, that's for sure.
Play Gladion. Yes, I got it back from my prizes. Or discards. Oh shit! No! Wait, I remember. Don't worry, I remember which cards I priced. Chat can confirm this with me. It's this, this at the very least. That's 7 out of 8. What's the 8th one? What was the 8th one, chat? Oh wait, it's the Gladion. The Gladion's the 8th one. Yeah. Shuffle. Dude, why are Shuffle and Shuffle all into deck, like, above each other? I hate it. I fucking hate it.
All the prize penalties right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheating. I will never read the cheating allegations. Play Luxury Ball.
Luxury Ball.
You better put these luxury balls in your mouth right now.
Alright, who's losing by 4 prizes?
Hey, I gotta get you at some way, shape, or form, right? At Lele GX.
Lele. Why?
Spinning is winning, my guy.
run Ninja Boy or Thornton? That's the real question.
This is tough. If only I ran counter catcher, then I could have Arvin for a counter catcher this turn. And take a kill with Zolborg.
You not play Pal Hand Extension?
I don't think so. I'll use this to discard Fan Rotom and draw 2.
You used Gladion this turn, right?
Yeah, I use Gladion as my supporter. I'm using Charade right now. Use Surprised Time Machine to shuffle the Zoroark into my deck.
Shuffle Zoroark into his deck. Get Zoroark. Which Zoroark?
Oh, whoops. Discard this, put this in my deck. This here.
That's on the ban list, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Since when?
What do you mean, since when?
That's been on the ban list.
No Zoroark has been on the ban list. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm getting receipts.
You're getting receipts? Sure. Zoroark is 100% not on the ban list. I'll use Phantom Transformation to discard this entire Pokemon and put Grafaiai into play.
No, you unbanned that. I know it was on there.
You know what's a funny part? I don't have a dark energy. I don't have a dark energy in hands, but I do have a Night Switcher.
That Zoroark's been banned. When did you unban him?
Literally, this guy's never been on the ban list. You're tripping. The Naganadel GX from this combo has been on the ban list, and that has been unbanned. I don't run the Naganadel GX.
I was looking into Zoroark. When did this get unbanned?
It never got unbanned. It has never been on the ban list. I'll retreat into Grafaiai. I need 6 to KO, right?
That's some baloney.
Yeah, I need 6 to KO. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the KO on Terapagos.
I could have sworn this was on the ban list. I don't trust you.
I mean, you're gonna fucking Radiant Greninja me for 2 prizes again this turn, so why are you complaining?
It's irrelevant. I'm gonna play Arvin. I'll get Hourglass.
Like I said,
And
the Naganadel GX from the classic Zoro box deck has been on the ban list, isn't anymore. That Zoroark, never been on the ban list. Never.
I'll attach Hourglass. I'll use Luxury Ball. Put Lapras into my hand. And I will use Moonlight Shuriken to knock out your Grafaiai and your Pidgeotto. And I'll use Hourglass to reattach an energy, and I'll take 2 prizes.
Draw for push Ori, draw for turn.
I could have sworn that Zoroark was banned.
Rare Candy into Porygon Z. Use Dimension Transfer. Do flip heads, nice. I'll put Energy Search Pro on top of my deck. Use Flip the Script to draw 3 cards. Play Energy Search Pro. For these 5. I have 24 cards in deck. Huh.
Candy Porygon. What the hell?
Attach Twin Energy to Jirachi. Bench Gimme Goal. Bench Dino. What? Actually, hold on. Do I want to do that? Because you'll just Radiant Greninja me for game if I do that.
He's thinking.
Fuck, bro. Did I play supporter yet? I haven't, right? No. No, I haven't supported for turn yet. Bench Lele. Use whatever that ability's name is called for Gore.
I think it's a Wonder Tag.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Yes, it's Wonder Tag.
To grab N, and I'll not play N yet.
Playing N.
Play Celine.
Oh.
Holy fuck. 2 heads, okay. Dude, if I had counter catcher, this would be so much easier. Oh my god. What do I put on top of my deck? These 2. And then I'll use Dance of Tribute to draw 3. Night Stretcher for Zacian V. Bench the Zacian V. Forest Sealstone. Use the Forest Sealstone.
What do you get this turn? That's the question.
Yeah, the question is this all enough? I doubt it, but... with Forest Sealstone, I'll grab... What do I grab with Forest Sealstone? This?
Does that? How much HP does that Porygon have? 110.
Let me just check. It's 110, yeah. I'll use Mount Coronet to recover 2 metal energies to my hands. I'll bump Mount Coronet for Skyfield.
Oh, nice.
Play Luxury Ball.
Balls.
Smear Goal. I know I already attached for turn.
Mew.
Trainer's Mail. Dude, I'm drawing so many cards this turn, it's fucking crazy. Trainer's Mail for Timer Ball. Play Timer Ball for 1 evolution Pokemon. Zoroark Break off of that. All of this draw, and it's not enough to help me win the game.
I mean, you can probably buy another turn. Not that that'll gain you anything, but...
Retreat into Radiant Jirachi. And I'll use Astral Misfortune to not KO your Greninja. Dude, I have 28 cards in hand. I should have played Alakazam in this deck, because holy fuck, the amount of cards is crazy.
Draw one card. I'll play Melody.
Ooh, bro's got melons.
Attach a basic water energy from my discard pile to one of my Pokemon V and draw 3 cards. I'll put down Manaphy, I'll put down Dew. Play Professor's Letter. Put 2 water energy into my hand. And attach water energy for turn onto my Radiant Greninja. Double Moonlight Shuriken targeting your Oricorio GX and your Tapu Lele GX. And I'll reattach energy with Power Glass.
Draw for turn. Oh, what? No, I didn't want to evolve my Oricorio into Smeargle. Jesus.
Smeargle.
Bench Smeargle. Why did I do that? I don't even have the thing yet. No, N is still in my hands.
Did you play him already? I'd like to draw boss.
Right. These 3. And these 3. Okay, never punished. Drew the double colorless. Let me think. Let me cook. Bench Gimmighoul. Play Arven.
There's the Arven.
For Nestball. Nestball for Lillipup.
I don't like finish this game already.
Dude, we got all the time in the world. No need to hurry. Retreat Raiden Jirachi into Smeargle. And I mean, I can reveal a bunch of energies in my hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is like already enough, but
But why?
I mean, I don't have to discard them. I only have to reveal them. So.
Oh. And you get to discard a bunch?
No, I get to keep them.
Oh. You just get to reveal them.
I did have to reveal them, yeah. I just realized I didn't use Porygon's ability this turn, but that's okay. Yeah, it's to grab the KO on Greninja, because that was like 10 energies.
Quite dead. I'll draw for turn. I'll bench down Sobble. I'll a commander tag. But Trap goes back into play. And I'll attach for turn to Trapco. I will treat into Dew. And then I will use Ninja Boy.
Alright.
To remove the Dene and put mine into this.
The Dene goes back to the deck though, right?
Okay. Then it goes back into the deck. I will then use Minum, draw cards,
Mm-hmm.
and then I will keep going.
Alright. Draw cards for turn.
Aren't you having fun?
Evolve into Golden Go.
Go bingo.
That's your metal energy. Dude, my hand is so big, I just don't know what to do.
You should play N before you deck out. I like to draw cards, please.
I mean, I can't draw cards because you didn't KO me.
Well, I like to draw cards. So you play N so I can use Industrial Insight to draw a boss.
Use Dimension Transfer. Nice. Does it say Trainer? Yeah, so it has to be an item. Because it's Gen 4 cards. Let me think. I want this one. Where does it say to top of deck? Here you go. It's Seeker. And then I'll use Smeargle's attack to reveal 1 energy to KO your Badu.
Alrighty. And we'll push Palkia. Draw a card. I'll use mine to draw 2 cards. I'll play Drizzile and to get boss's order. I will attach return. I'll play boss. And that is good game.
Yeah, GG.
Would you like to play another round?
Sure, but I did realize that I didn't include Porygon Z level X in the list. So I will add that right now. I will go ahead and add that right now and cut another card.
Yeah, I had a really good line earlier, but I missed it. I could have finished that game like 15 turns ago.
Nice. What card am I cutting for this?
And Radiant Jirachi. Why do you have a Stoutland line? I'm just noticing that. Why do you have a Lillipup on your bench?
For the treasure hunt herdier.
Why do we have Stoutland? What are we doing?
It's a treasure hunt herdier.
Okay, but why are you playing Stoutland? You could just cut Stoutland and put in your Porygon, and then everything would be nice.
I can cut Stoutland, yeah. That's probably the card I should cut here.
Yeah, do that, please.
Not like I'm ever gonna push Stoutland. I'd rather push Radiant Jirachi.
You would rather push Jirachi? No, Jirachi's a horrible card.
No. Not.
Alright, heads or tails?
Tails, please. I will go first.
Yay, I get to play supporters.
That is a very cursed starting Pokemon.
Mine's not much better.
Alright, good luck, have fun. Quick ball. Do a quick scout of what's priced and what isn't. What do I want to grab with quick ball? I will grab Jirachi and bench Jirachi. Fetch Darkness Energy to Tapu Lele and pass my turn.
Alrighty. Draw for turn. Now play Misty's Tear to discard Execute.
And
get 2 water energy.
God, I love the Village Bridge team. It's so good. Such a banger.
Do I get there?
Get where? Underwear?
Sorry. Pump is where I'm trying to get.
Turn 1 going second?
Yeah.
What is my guy planning?
I mean, well, obviously I play level ball first and go get Fan Rotom, but...
Oh my god, I have Fan Rotom in this deck and I never get... Wait, I had Fan Rotom, why didn't I grab Fan Rotom? Was it because it was priced? No, it wasn't priced! Dude, why did I'm fucking stupid, why... The one time that I can grab Fan Rotom turn 1 and I didn't.
Very good, very good.
Why did I not grab Fan Rotom, man? That's so much better!
Oh, use my...
Oh...
It's not fair that you messed up. What?
No, that's not what I said. Like, I said why did I not grab Fan Rotom? That would have been so much better. Like, I'm just mad at myself for for thinking that it's priced and it's not priced. Like, ugh.
Oh, that's no fun. My stuff is priced.
Yeah. Relatable.
In fact, a lot of my stuff is priced.
Relatable.
Alright, I'll get you. I'll get you. And I think I'm gonna have to give up on Torrential Pump this turn. Very sad. And I'll get that. Actually, can I? It's too late. I already put it in hand. I'll attach return and then retreat into Ditto.
By the way, Sam, please tell me, do you prefer this website or do you prefer Untap?
Oh, this is miles better.
Oh yeah, I know, right? It's so much nicer.
Miles. Okay. This is extremely scuffed already. I'll get Palkia. And I think I'll use Capturing Aroma. Heads, I get an evolution. I'll get Drizzile.
Oh boy.
And then I'll play Candace.
Jesus. Candace, dick fit in your mouth. You got it? You found any?
Who's losing?
You found any?
Top 7.
But you don't draw the 7. You don't draw the 7, my guy.
That was the wrong, but believe it or not.
Yeah, you can do Alt 7 for that.
View all top 7, not draw top 7. And I will get a water energy. And shuffle back. And end my turn.
Alright. Draw for turn. Dude, this card is fucking horrible. Like Gladion.
I was close to torrential pump, but I could not find. I didn't have any way to get a retreat. Otherwise, I would have had it.
Guess I'm grabbing this. Wait, hold on. Hello? Guess I'm grabbing this. Shuffle, not shuffle into deck. Guess luxury ball is like not the worst thing to grab off of your prizes. Grab this guy. Skyfield. Memory energy.
No, he's using Jirachi this turn. He's, wait, you don't have Gladiator.
I can't use Jirachi this turn. Use Crobat V's Dark Acid to draw 4.
Crobat in his hand, just like that.
Well, I luxury balled for it, but okay.
Okay.
Do I even bench this guy at this point? Do I even bench this guy? Probably not. I'll use Energy Drive to do 40 damage to your Poké. Pass.
And draw for turn. I don't like going second. It's no fun.
No? You don't like it? I mean, you get to KO. You get to probably KO my Tapu Lele this turn, so I don't think you get to complain.
I'll get Irida into hand. I'll play Irida. Get a water Pokemon and an item. The water Pokemon I'll get is Palkia, V-Star, Origin Form Palkia, V-Star. And the item is probably this one. I'll get Ultra Ball if he's in here. He's not in here. I'll get Quick Ball. Evolve into Palkia, I'll play Quick Ball, discard energy, and get Radiant Greninja. No. Use Radiant Greninja. Discard energy and draw 2. Do I still have energy for turn?
Yeah, you do.
But I don't have a retreat. Because I played supporter.
I mean, you KO this with Palkia.
Yeah, I know, but I was thinking I could Radiant Greninja and I can, but I have no reason to. Alright, I'll use a Star Portal.
Yep.
To attach 2 Palkia and 1 to Radiant Greninja.
Oh, careful.
That's not what I wanted to do. And then I should knock out.
Yeah, you do 200s. Knockouts. Are you going for? Yeah, okay, you're taking the prizes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Push Jirachi And draw. Yeah, I mean, maybe you wanted to do something else on your turn. I don't know. Thanks for saving me, by the way. Thank you.
What do you expect me to do? I'm not knocking out Jirachi and giving you free stuff.
Wonder attack.
Oh, of course, you have Night Stretcher in hand. Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't my opener.
We're having a joke.
Arven, use Arven.
Okay, it's just Arven. That's fine.
To grab these two.
Sealstone, Fog Crystal, yep.
I mean, I'll leave Arven here, just so it's clear for the Jirachi.
Oh, you're gonna Jirachi.
Yeah, Fog Crystal for Gimme Ghoul.
Gimme Ghoul, yep, I knew it.
For Sealstone. Use for Sealstone.
Okay, you're dying this turn. You're done, pal.
You're done. For discards, play Buddy Buddy Puffin.
Oh, he's getting all the basics.
Grab these two. Man, I shouldn't. Nah, I mean, it's too late now. And I'll use Detour to reuse my Arven.
Alrighty.
To search my deck for Evo Soda and no tool.
Whiff on the tool, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, whiff on the tool.
Oh, that's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff marked on your bench. Just saying.
Energy, what? I'm missing an energy somewhere.
Yeah, it said after you drew cards, you removed the water energy from your Greninja to the discard.
I went to the discard. Okay, that's weird.
I'm seeing it in the log, yeah.
I'll use concealed cards. Discard 1 and draw 2. That's more inconvenient than anticipated. I'll use Aqua Patch to attach water energy 2 for Ninja. I'll attach Air Balloon. I'll keep playing Talion.
Oh my god.
I got that off the prizes.
That's crazy.
And I'll get Earthen Vessel and Gladion. I will use Execute's ability, put it into my hand, and then discard it with Earthen Vessel.
Yeah. For 200.
And I'll use executability. Put it in my hand,
Yeah.
and then I'll play an Ultra Ball, discard and execute. Don't know which one though. And a Kieran.
I wonder which execute it is in a singleton format.
Hey man, hands private knowledge. You don't know.
Yeah, I know. I'm not protesting. I'm not protesting.
And I'll put Hoot
It's how the card is
into
intended
my
to work.
hand.
I mean, I wouldn't.
And I get
I mean, you can put it on the bench if you want. We have Skyfield. Yeah.
I know. That's what I just wanted to do what I was supposed to do. Then I'll play Gladion.
Glad. He's so glad.
Put a card into my hand. Put Gladion into my prizes. And I'll attach return onto Radiant Greninja. I will retreat my Palkia. And I will use Moonlight Shuriken to knock out your Porygon and your Gimmicule.
Okay.
And take 2 prize cards.
Draw for turn. This sucks. This sucks big time. Because, like, if I Evo Soda, it doesn't trigger Herdier's ability.
And you wonder why I didn't kill the
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I did it, of course. The thing is, I don't have a supporter in hand. No, I got the Evo Soda off of something else. I don't know. Did I get it off the Arven?
I'm fairly certain you did because you revealed it for some reason.
Oh yeah, I did. I did. Yeah, it was from the second Arven. Yeah. I guess I'm doing this. Wait, let me double check. This Jirachi does have free retreat, right? Yeah, it does. Okay.
Is he gonna swing with Fan Rotom?
Yeah, I'm doubting if I want to swim a Fan Rotom or do a pickup this turn. That's how dire we are.
I mean, Luxury Ball seems pretty decent for pickup.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna do it.
Or Poffin, one of the two.
I'll grab Poffin.
Cool beans. I'll draw for turn. And I'll toggle two cards and discard, and then draw 2.
Yeah, there's still a bunch of dots on your bench. Like on the Ogre Pond, for example. I don't think that's supposed to be there.
The Ogre Pond does not have a marker on
It shows markers for me.
And I toggle it on and toggle it off, see if it goes away.
It does not.
That's weird. I'll put it into my hand then.
Yeah, now it's gone. Like the Fan Rotom and the Bidoof also have markers for. Wait, no, the Bidoof didn't have a marker before, and now it does. You know what? Never mind. I'll just have to keep more track. Yeah, but now the Inteleon has a marker.
Because I used the ability, I can get rid of that though.
Yeah, my now the Inteleon has a marker. Like it's weird.
Okay,
I think it's bugged, but that's okay. It's bugged, but it's okay.
Okay. What to do this turn? I don't really think you can do anything. I think I'm correct in assuming that. So I will play.
No words for me. Full poker face.
To get Guzma.
Goonsma! Oh no, not Goonsma.
As well as Timer Ball. And I'll then play Guzma to rip up the Tapu Lele.
Alright.
I'll attach return to Greninja. I'll play down Suicune V. I'll then play Good Rod. Flip a coin. It's tails, and I will put.
Oh my god.
Trainer card.
Well, item
Or
cards.
the top of my deck. Oh, the item card, same difference. Is Aqua Patch.
Yeah, okay. Because it's a card from pre-Gen 5. Yep. This is not looking great for me. Draw for turn. That is a supporter. Okay, we did draw into a supporter. Often for these two fuckers. Careful, I guess. Am I gonna play a supporter?
Oh, yeah, you have things on the bench.
Yeah. I do. Rockets admin.
That's crazy. Oh, that's weird. I will draw my 4 cards. That's tragic.
Play Good Rods. Okay. Put my Porygon on top of my deck.
Alright.
This hand is a little awkward to work with if I'm planning on using Rockets admin to the end of the turn.
Oh yeah, please do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna detour to reuse my Rockets admin.
Yay! Roger, what? I'm gonna draw for turn. Dang, that's crazy. Well, shit. What do I do now? I'm gonna switch. You put Suicune V into the active.
Why not retreat?
Actually, that's a fair point. I forgot I could retreat. Hold on.
Yeah, just retreat. You're fine. Take the switch back into your hand. You're good. You have a balloon on your Palkia.
Balloon is on there.
You're good. You're good.
I will draw my card.
I was like, surely if he wants to be barrel, he will play the barrel first, right? But
I don't have the barrel.
yeah.
We're so back anyway. Because I drew an Aqua Patch.
That's crazy.
Patch energy, and then I'll play the switch. Put Suicune to the bench. And then I can play Hisuian Heavy Ball.
Yeah.
And I'll get Kricketune V into my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And Hisuian Heavy Ball goes to prize. And then I can... I don't know. I'll put Execute into my hand. Now, I don't know. I'll pass. Actually, no, I won't pass. I'll use Moonlight Shuriken to knock out Zuru and Dino, but I'm ending my turn. Same difference.
Let me guess, you're only discarding one because you're doing Power Glass?
Of course. You already know it.
Okay, draw for turn. Yeah, I think I'm cooked here, chats. I mean, I have this and this. And Letter of Encouragement.
Letter of Encouragement. Oh no, you actually killed me this turn. Hold on. He's taking prizes. He's playing the game.
Play Herdier, trigger the ability
Whoa.
to get
Okay,
a Night
spicy.
Stretcher back. Play the Night Stretcher to get
Epulele.
Gimme Ghoul back onto my
Oh,
bench.
gimme cool. On my
Ball
bench.
Guy. I think I have exactly 3 balls left in my deck. Yeah, I do. These 3.
Spicy.
To my hand. Nest Ball. Put Pheasantipity on my bench.
Pheasantipity.
Timer Ball. 1 evolution. Grab Zoroark. Wait, no, wait, you KO'd my. Hold on, we're not grabbing Zoroark. You KO'd my Shi. Golden Go.
Gold Dango.
Ultra Ball. Away. Fighting Energy. And Pidgeot. Or.
You played Ball Guy this turn, right?
Yeah. Ball Guy's my supporter for turn.
Okay.
Or Azelf.
No, I think I see the line. I think I see a line for you here.
Play Azelf. Use the Poké-Power.
I think I see a line.
Grab Shroodle. And put. Put discard into my prizes. Bench Shroodle.
And then I see the line.
Pheasantipity, draw 3. I draw into Oricorio, that's crazy. Draw another 3.
But does he see the line?
Bump Skyfield. It's my Skyfield, right? Yeah, so I do discard first. So discard Azelf, discard Crobat, discard Herdier.
That's the game right there.
What are you discarding from bench?
Oh, I don't know. Noctowl. And Rotom.
Alright, retreat into Smeargle. And use, what's this attack called? Life Painting.
Are you gonna knock me out?
2, 3, 4, 5. That's all you need to see. For 1 measly prize. God fucking damn it.
And I'll draw for turn. And I'll play Prime Catcher.
Yeah, okay. That's GG.
So your line was to play your Mount Coronet and then bump all your 2 prizers.
Yeah, so I wasn't far off. I was just greedy. But how would I have known that you had Prime Catcher in hand? Like, we're 10 to 2.
I always assume people have Gust in hand. That's how the game works.
Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, that's right. You didn't even burn your VS Seeker. I thought you did. That's fair. Yeah, okay, so I think I mostly bit in the butt here that I don't run Mr. Mime for bench barrier. I don't
I didn't have the Prime Catcher in hand. I had Boss's Orders on the top 2 cards in my deck.
Okay. Okay, buddy.
I
think-
drawn it
yeah.
off Poké Gear or off the Suicune.
I think the biggest misplay happens in deck building when I didn't include Mr. Mime from Plasma Freeze in this deck. I think that's where the biggest mistake happens. Don't you think?
What does Mr. Mime from Plasma Freeze even do?
It's bench barrier, prevents your bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, prevents all damage done to your bench Pokemon by attacks. So also your own attacks, if that's ever relevant for things like attacks that damage your own bench.
Or you could use Mew.
Yes, I could, but I like Mr. Mime better.
Mr. Mime is like the OG.
Yeah, and he's like buffable. I mean, Mew is as well, but Mew is 60 HP, isn't it?
Yes, Mew is 60 HP.
Yeah, Mr. Mime is 70, so...
Okay, but I'm pretty sure Mew's attack is much more relevant.
I mean, do I ever want to attack with Mew with this list, though? I don't think so.
3 damage counters any way you like.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever want to attack with Mew in this list. I'd rather have the plus 10 HP.
I mean, that's just snipe the buddy. I mean, that's pretty relevant.
You know what card I actually should have put in this deck?
What one?
The Spiritomb. With Hex Mirror.
What does that do?
Is that ability that people can't play Ace-Specs.
Ah.
I should have put that one in, actually. But I was like, my brain was like, okay, I'm trying to make this like the least of a control deck possible. I just try and go aggression. So maybe I also shouldn't have put in. I don't think I should have put in Radiant Jirachi. It's like a cool card, but it's definitely not needed. I think it would have been better if I included stuff like maybe Brute Bonnet, Radiant Soon Sneasler, more damage amplifiers. Although I don't think I ever lacked damage when I was swinging. I mean, you saw my Zoroark break, of course. I don't think this card mattered because it can't evolve from Zoroark GX, and the other Zoroark that I had is like the self-killing one. So, or like not self-killing, but like self-discarding one. So, I think this one is also like a cool tech card that I should have actually got. Now let's see. Is there any other cards that you didn't get to see yet? I don't think.
I never saw the Goldango.
I mean, you saw Goldango EX grabbed, but like you never saw this Goldango.
Oh, you got Baby Goldango.
I got Baby Goldango, but not the one you think. I got the one from Mega Evolution.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's like 50% chance to search your deck for cards, 25% chance to search your deck for 2 cards, etc. Also, I mean, you saw Arven, of course, but I also run Skyla and Team Rocket's Petrol to grab Energy Search Pro.
Gotta get the Energy Search Pro, yeah.
Yeah, I got Guzman Hala, that never came to play, but that's like a no-brainer to include here. What is cool though, that also, I mean, you saw Energy Recycler, of course, but I also have Discard, of course, like Superior Energy Retrieval, but I also have Super Energy Retrieval.
Super Energy, what does that do?
It does the exact same thing as Superior Energy Retrieval.
Oh, how fancy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you know like every single thing that's in this deck already.
Yeah, I also had Neo Upper and Super Boost, by the way, in case you were wondering. The Super Boost is mostly the Super Boost is mostly for the Hydreigon EX, but that never came up. And I mean, like Neo Upper also for Hydreigon EX, just so you can actually swing with the commander more easily. Is there like any other card that didn't come into play? Oh yeah, this one. More consistency. Boxed order.
Oh, boxed order.
Hell yeah. I think you saw every other card.
Sure you know every single...
Other than like the Zweilous. But like, the Zweilous is not that interesting, I think. Of course. But I do like the inclusion of the Phantom Transformation Zoroark in this. It's really cool. I mean, you also never saw Professor's Letter, but like that's, once again, not a card that you're surprised I'm running, I'm assuming. You saw most of the big hitters. once again, for more consistency to recover Energy Search Pro.
To get ESP, yeah.
I have like the consistency to get ESP. Like there's so many cards that can get it or recover it. That was like the game plan, that you always have something to get it or recover it. You know, because you have Herdier, you have Pickup from Lillipup. I don't have Recycle. That you could consider adding that. But I have like Arven, Skyline, Team Rocket's Petrol to search for them. I have Box Order to search for it. I have like what was it? Or Sealstone to search for it potentially, and then I have Herdier or Lillipup to recover it, or Silene, or Good Rods, or there was another card I think that recovered it. I forgot now. It's fine. It's whatever. That was kind of the idea of the deck. But it's kind of funny that like the Pidgeot and the Pidgeot and the Goldango never came in play because of fucking no bench barrier. I'm gonna include that right now, by the way. I'm gonna cut Zoroark Break, however cool that guy is, and I'm gonna include Plasma Freeze Mr. Mime. Right this instant. Because that just makes the deck like 5 million times better. But the Zoroark is really cool, for sure. If anyone wants to see the deck, it's on stream here right now. It's also, of course, in the description of the YouTube stream, and I'll probably put it in the Cube Koga as well at some point. I'm really behind on Cube Koga decks, I must say. I also post them in the CPU Discords, the Control Players Unite Discords. They have a channel for Poké-Commander. And I usually post like a picture of the deck that I played in the Discord server. So if you want to wow, speaking is very difficult today. So if you do want to join the Discord server, just click on the link that just appeared in chat. So we can talk about deck building for this fun format, or playing with each other, or whatever, anything else. We're doing a lot of stuff Pokemon related. Is there anything that I wanted to talk about in this deck that didn't come up? I mean, yeah, I play Arven, but I have like 2 tools in my deck. That's why the Arven was failed. I run Floatstone and Forest Sealstone, and the Floatstone was priced in that game too, so I only could grab the Forest Sealstone.
No air balloon, no fluffy berry. Interesting.
Yeah, there was a previous build that had the escape board, because I also had the Jirachi, the 2 Jirachis that like look at the top X of deck. Hold on. The one from Team Up, and the one from Deoxys. This one as well. This older one is actually better in my opinion, because you can grab a card from that. Like, yes, it's lower HP, but you can grab any card from the top 5. You don't have to reveal it. But it's, once again, the same ability where it falls asleep after you do that, and it has 1 retreat cost. It's 60 HP, so it's profitable as well. I mean, so is the Stellar Wish Jirachi from Team Up, but that's 70 HP, but I'd much prefer the Deoxys Jirachi. It's just better. But that previous build had that tool and that Pokemon in it. And then I realized, wait, I might actually want to add Porygon Z in this deck, because that's kind of like a good point. Because we did discuss that, and then I forgot to add it into the deck. So yeah. But I must say, this Tutu Zoro, the Tutu Zoroark line feels really solid in this list, I must say.
I'm surprised you ran the baby Zoroark and not N Zoroark.
Because you need to evolve N Zoroark from N Zorua.
Yeah, that's true.
And I wanted more consistency. So I just ran like a recent Zorua and then the Ascension one from back in the day.
So why no airmail? That's my question.
No airmail. Yeah, I could have. I think I just prefer this Pidgeotto over the airmail Pidgeotto, but you can definitely make a case for both. And since I was like, there's very little control aspects in this deck, and you do need to like stall for a little bit, Clutch is probably your best bet. Also, I only have 1 Gust card. I only have Guzma. So you can definitely change that.
That's suspicious.
Well, I mean, I have VS Seeker for Guzma. I mean, I have VS Seeker for Guzma, and I have like Good Rod and Silene to recover those. And other cards to recover VS Seeker that can recover Guzma. So that was my thought process. Like, I probably have an abundance of those effects, so I can use that for VS Seeker as well.
You need to lean real heavy to the Goldango.
Yeah. But like Porygon Z level X is kind of hype, yeah. Especially if you combine it with Fez or Corio. It's just really hard to put in play. The thing is, it's really hard to put in play because you can only level up Pokemon when it's in the active spot or when you flip heads on level max. And this Porygon Z level X does have a retreat cost of 2, so it's kind of awkward to get it there. But if you have like Floatstone or Air Balloon, whatever, it's better. Yeah. Which means you do have to commit the Air Balloon there, but yeah. Or Floatstone or Fluffy Berry, whatever.
I mean, it's the same like with the barrel. You always have to commit Air Balloon no matter what anyway.
Yeah, that's right. That's technically right. And yeah, technically I do like to attach it to Oricorio because that thing cannot use Force Seal Stone. But of course we have Moonlight Stadium in case you do need to retreat more for that. A bunch of Pokemon can now free retreat because of Moonlight Stadium. Like half the Pokemon in deck. But yeah. A change I will do right now is cut the Radiant Jirachi and add a Pow Hand extension. That's a change that you definitely have to make for this list. But yeah, I liked making a hyper aggressive deck for a change, sort of. It's kind of like setup heavy. It's more of a combo deck than a hyper aggressive deck in that sense. What the fuck is discard? I've never seen discard. Flip a coin if heads, shuffle 2 energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. 1 if you only have 1. Okay, this card is ass. This card probably was good at some point in the past, but like this is so bad. Yeah. So, asking chat, power charge is hype, special energy recovery. Oh wait, you're right, it doesn't say basic energy. You're right. So this is like worse special charge. But it's still... Oh, I thought special charge was the only one in format that recovered together with Roseanne's backup, but... Yeah, I guess power charges actually also can recover special energy. That's right. Yeah, interesting. Next week, no more Poké. Yeah, it's getting boring. That's fair. Yeah, so about next week, 2 messages. 1, I have no idea what to play next week. As you can see, I keep all my commander decks here, and I put a smiley face next to the ones that I have played. As you can see, there's like 1 here. 1 deck left that doesn't have a smiley face, but this deck is very old. This deck is like incredibly old. I made this like at the start of the format, at the start of theorizing the format. So either I can like tweak this and try and optimize this, but this is like heavy control, I feel like, so I don't think people would enjoy if I tried to heavy optimize that. So my plan was to ask you, or I have this one, but this is not a finished build, as you can see. This is actually trying to make Sylveon VMAX work with the Kecleon. But Sam already did try that before. This is like a separate build, of course, but yeah, just saying on that. Why did I put this Yuxi in? I don't remember. I think I just wanted Azelf Yuxi Mesprit engine. Anyway, I will take recommendations for specific commanders or specific deck ideas. Please do tell me. Please do tell me, and I'll try to make it. I think that would be fun. I mean, I can probably think of something to make for next week, but currently I'm dry. Power charge and energy charge are the same, but both can get special energy. Wait, energy charge? I don't think I know that card. Oh. Interesting. They're exactly the same card. Like, the art is the same even for these. I mean, like, one is from a different era, of course. Interesting. That's pretty cool. Like, 2 of these is on average 1 special charge, which is funny. And as you can see, I do have, in case you guys wanted me to share this, I do have a list of like 22 cards that are like, I think objectively the best cards in format that you always want to consider running in your deck. Like always, always, always. Okay, Evo Soda is actually probably not one of them. Never mind, 21. But the thing is, Evo Soda is in there because I like putting Evo Soda in the decks. In the index because I like the card. Hisuian Heavy Balls should actually probably be here, and or Gladion. Gladion is like kind of a toss-up, but I think Hisuian Heavy Balls should always be in your deck. The first Ditto is kind of sus, not gonna lie. The Fortin Ditto, I mean, yeah, no Timer Ball. The thing is, Timer Ball is good, but I don't think you should put Timer Ball in every deck, of course. It's more or less what I'm trying to say. I think there's like plenty of decks that only run a few evolutions that you don't want to run Timer Ball in, and you'd rather just want to run like 1 evolution incense, 1 Evo Soda, and that's it. Missing Fan Rotom? Yeah, because not every deck uses like a lot of colorless Pokemon. Is more or less what I'm trying to say. This first Ditto is fucking goated though. This first Ditto is straight up just like a mini Fortin. It's just Fortin on a Pokemon. Hands down the best card in format? No. The best card in format, in my opinion, is, I think, still Versus Seeker. Honestly, Versus Seeker is like insane. In my opinion. Or, sorry, no, not Versus Seeker, Luxury Ball. Like, I think Luxury Ball is objectively the best card in the game. Luxury Ball is like, I want to say this is like the only cards that you put in literally every single deck. Like, if you don't put Luxury Ball in your deck, you're not even trying. It's more or less what I'm trying to say. Fan Rotom might be like second to that or something, I don't know. But I feel like Luxury Ball is the best card in the format. And like not in a toxic way whatsoever, but I feel like every deck wants a Luxury Ball. Just because of how good it is. Don't you agree with me, or? Lux Ball is in every deck, yeah. Like Fan Rotom might not be in every deck, but it might be more broken, but I think Luxury Ball is in every deck and is on average better. Yeah. I simply cannot think of a single deck that would not want this card, is more or less what I'm trying to say. So if you make a Commander deck, first put in your Commander, then put in Luxury Ball, and then you can think about the 98 other cards, is more or less what I'm trying to say. But you should probably think about including these cards for consistency, is what I'm mostly getting at. Or like, at least this is my cheat sheet. If you like making decks a different way, you obviously can. I'm just trying to give you guys tools to make deck building easier. Is what I'm trying to say. You still think Rotom is more powerful? Interesting. Yeah, the thing is, I'm trying to think of decks that don't run that many colorless Pokemon, so that you don't want to run Fan Rotom in them, but I think the decks that I'm thinking of could run a few more colorless Pokemon to include Fan Rotom. That's what I'm trying to say. Because you probably want to include both these Dittos, which almost makes it worth to include Fan Rotom. Like the deck that I brought last week doesn't have that many colorless Pokemon. It has like an Eevee, the 2 Dittos, and that's it. So I didn't include Fan Rotom, but you can definitely consider running Fan Rotom by like cutting a few of these cards, adding like a Bidoof Barrel line or Hoothoot Noctowl line, and then adding the Fan Rotom. That's kind of like the idea behind that. You haven't made a deck that was even half decent that didn't include Rotom. Fair. What would be the best deck that I made? I think I think this is probably the best one that I made with the Lucario Lost Zone attacking deck. I think that's probably the best one that I made. I'm not entirely sure on that, but that felt like a really, really good deck. What was this deck again? Was this deck any good? This was alright, I think. The control list with Torns was good. Oh yeah, the Umbreon list, the Torns Garbodor list, yeah. That one was pretty solid, yeah. Yeah, this list was pretty saucy. Maybe I should just play this. I don't know. Maybe I should just try and optimize this. That's an idea. God, this list is fucking disgusting. Holy shit. I think the deck was the deck you were the most proud of was Unknown Hands. That's very fair. I think the deck that I'm the most proud of is definitely the Glaceon EX deck. With like the Glaceon EX and then all the other cards that deal 60 damage, like this is the Rule of Evil Weavile, and then the Maractus, and the Pukamuku and the Quillfish. And then like Energy Crush Leafeon as well. I'm really proud of this deck. I don't think this was the best one, but it's definitely one of the most interesting decks I've made, I think. Oh, Goodron. I already put Goodron in this list, damn. Oh yeah, and Bursting Balloon as well. Bursting Balloon also put 6. This deck needs an update for Mega Absol. Oh yeah, it does. It does. I probably should up the Dark Count for that. Yeah, Mega Absol would go kind of hard in this list, not gonna lie. Because that's also with 6 damage counters, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll look into that. I'll add it as the 100 first cards, and I'll definitely look into that later. But the thing is, the thing what I'm mostly trying to get at with this, Mega Absol also just kind of removed any niche that Glaceon had. At least the niche that Glaceon has here is that you can put Water, Grass, and Dark Pokemon in the same deck. But what I'm trying to get at is, if I make an updated list with this, with Mega Absol in it, I feel like it's not an original list enough that it would warrant an entire stream, is more or less what I'm trying to say. But I think at this point, it's been so long ago that I played this list. This is like, I think I want to say like the 2nd or 3rd week the format existed, that this list probably feels is like so far back that most people don't remember it anymore. So I might actually want to look into updating this list, actually, yeah. Because it was very fun to play. Well, it wasn't necessarily the best list, but I should make a lightning box. I mean, I kind of did with like this list, with the Reshi Zekrom list, where there's just a lot of lightning and fire nuking things. Palkia's getting boring. Yeah. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. I could make a lightning box list. It's not really my playstyle. Or I can ask Strategic to play it. Because if you guys remember the showcase match, the very first match of Poké-Commander ever with 4 people, Strategic played Lightning Box. So I think I'll ask for his deck list and then try and update that. I think that's probably an interesting idea. But even if I make Lightning Box, like the best lightning attackers are like 2-prizers, so you still win, probably. You still win by just knocking out my 2-prizers. It's still a prize race, I think. I don't think we've even had more than like 3 games with all the people. Yeah, it's really hard to get 4 people, but also because untap is like really cursed. It's more or less what I'm also trying to get at. What is this tab? Cards I want to try. Oh yeah, I could try Ultra Necrozma. That's interesting. That's definitely interesting. Ultra Necrozma is definitely a cool card I could try and build a deck around. It probably would feel very similar to what I just made, because that also has Steel, or also has Metal and Psychic in the deck. But I could probably make like an Ultra Necrozma Garbodor list. That feels alright. I think this is in part like part of the Lightning box, or this is more or less Magnezone box. Just like this is a better Bibarel attack, or a better Bibarel ability, and also pretty solid attack. And you can probably combine this with like the Raikou from Lost Thunder, this one, to deal more damage with this. We haven't had a grass deck yet. Grass box. Yeah, so I put these two here, like Weezing and Shedinja kind of together. That's not really a core of a grass box, I would say, but I can try and make a grass box, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely try and make a grass box. That's an interesting idea. Hold on. Now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should lay a foundation for this already. Grass box. So, I don't know why, but the first card I'm thinking of is Eldegoss to put in this deck for sure. Just because Eldegoss is so solid. I'm just trying to think of grass staples. I think the Vespiquen is interesting. The Bee Revenge one is interesting. And this one is interesting, like the Defense Sign. It's more or less actually that Combee is interesting. It's what I'm trying to get at. The Honey Combee is really solid. Did you see what you said about Mega Meganium? That's a deck you're planning to make. That's very interesting. I could consider like making this a heavy Meganium list with like this Meganium and this Meganium. Ripening, quick ripening herb. And then also do this one. Leaf Trance Meganium is an idea. Are there any other like good Meganiums? Active, it heals. During your turn, you may attach a grass energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. If you do, remove 1 damage counter. This is extra acceleration. That's interesting. Oh, this is also Wild Growth Meganium. This is a sleeping attack. When you play Meganium from your hand, you may flip a coin. If heads, remove all damage counters from all grass Pokemon in play. That's interesting, but probably not good enough. Meganium Lion is super fat now. Yeah, that's true. What's this one say? Flip a coin. It's just a sleeping one. Same one. This is an EX. What does this one say? Oh, this is status condition related. This one is Delta. I mean, this is really good though. Like, when you evolve this, you get to just search your deck for 3 Pokemon. When you evolve into this. But it's not a grass type, so that's sad. But it's definitely not a bad one. Yeah, so we can go like Thick Meganium. Definitely add a Teal Mask Ogerpon for certain in this. Is this a list that... This is probably a list that wants to play the Sniping Genesect, the new one. What else does this list want to play? There's probably a bunch of things this list wants to play. Like definitely a Revitalizer now that I'm thinking about it. I feel like the Night Stretcher and Rescue Stretcher also. Definitely Suian Heavy Ball. God. Oh wait, it's already in here. Whoops. Definitely Gladion. Maybe Peonia, probably not. I feel like Peonia is a little underwhelming in specifically Commander, because you only see 3 of your 10 prize cards rather than 3 of your 6. Really, it's just Wild Growth with Quick Ripening and Mega Meganium attacking. Yeah, the thing is, Mega Meganium is not out yet, so if I want to play this next turn, or next week, then I can't. Then it won't be out yet. That's what I'm trying to get at. This probably also plays that new Toadscruel, or not the new one, the one from Scarlet Violet base. It's Paldean Fates actually, it's not Scarlet Violet base. Does it also play the Toadscruel EX, this deck? Maybe. What does this do again? All effective attacks used by your opponent's Pokemon, then to all your Pokemon that have energy attached. Maybe? Maybe. An interesting one for this one could be the Cherrim from Battle Styles. Because this can just attach unlimited grass energy to non-rule box Pokemon. Which is really interesting. What does this Cherrim say? I don't think we need celebrations or I don't think we need Celebration Winds Shaman. No, we don't. Because we have the... I mean, we have this, but like, Celebration Wind Shaman is interesting for sure. There was a Torterra level X that's... what was the Torterra level X? This one. Like, if you have more prizes left than your opponent, you can gust. Which is definitely interesting. I'm trying to think, like, Evo Press is probably the play, especially if we're going with that Meganium build. And then the Grottle with Sunder and Shell is like a must in this list. The Torterra EX, is that worth playing in this? Maybe. There was this Beautifly that was like kind of solid. This one, yeah, draw until you have 6 in hand. That's actually kind of nasty. I'm just trying to think of like good grass Pokemon to put in this list. Grovyle, need him? Hold on, Grovyle. This Grovyle? Hold on. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for grass Pokemon revealed and put it into your hand. So that's the same ability as this Grottle. That's interesting. Or do you mean a different Grovyle? I doubt it, but maybe this one? No, probably not. Or is it this one? Hold on. I do remember the Kricketot now. I do want Bug Hunch Kricketot because this searches your deck for 3 grass Pokemon on an attack, which is really nice. But you mean this one? But I already have the Grottle that does this, so I mean, I guess it probably doesn't hurt. Is there a good Sceptile to go with this? There probably is. Prevent all damage done to your Pokemon and have any grass energy attached to them by Ultra Beasts. What does the GX do? Jack shit. This is extra acceleration, which is interesting. What does this one say? Oh, this is a Mega Barrier, which is not bad. There probably isn't a great one for this. Energy Trance. There's a bunch of them with Energy Trance. Wait, I can combine. I just realized this. Hold on. What I can do is I can combine Jungle Totem and the Wild Growth Pokebody and the Wild Growth ability. It says the effective Wild Growth doesn't stack. Okay, so it doesn't work with this Wild Growth. That's unfortunate. Yeah, it says the effective Wild Growth doesn't stack, so that means that this Wild Growth does not work with. I can stack it with Jungle Totem. That's at least something. That's not how that works, Noah? Well, you better tell PTCG Live that's not how that works, because it does work in their game. It does. Jungle Totem and Wild Growth do stack in their game. If you don't believe me, try it. Because it does work in PTCGL is shit. No, you're right. It actually doesn't work. It shouldn't work. Because it specifically says that every basic grass energy now becomes a special energy that's worth 2 grass. That's kind of how you should read this. So it doesn't work with the Sceptile either. Is there really no better Sceptile to include here? I guess the Nurture and Heal one is not the worst. Or is there like one that actually like does decent damage? Wait, Powerful Storm is actually not terrible. This attack is actually kind of powerful. With the amount of energies we can put in play. This deck needs like 15 grass energy at the very least, I feel like. 14. Bug Catching Set is a card that we have to include. We have to include Netball. Bro, this is a search card is good. Yeah, you're right. This deck probably does want Timer Ball and does want Evo Soda. I think this deck probably also wants Time Space Distortion. Yeah, because we do run a lot of Pokemon. We're already at like 62 cards. Not that I want every single one of these cards in the deck, but possibly Rillaboom. Oh yeah, that could be a card to include. Could be a card to include. Yeah, for sure. That's actually not a bad shout, yeah. There's probably better, even more stage 2 grass types that we want to include. There's probably like a good shift tree or something. And I can maybe skimp on like some of the middle stages if I just use this one. If I just use Meganium, I can probably skimp on some of the stage 1s. Like Expelling Tornado is like, especially in a format with a lot of Skyfield and a lot of Area Zero, this one could be interesting. Yeah, okay, so those are those are banned cards. It would be funny to include them, but those are banned cards, unfortunately. Oh wait, discard a grass energy, draw 3. That's actually not terrible. There's a few grass stadiums. You think? Yeah, yeah. I should probably do those first. There's Turffield Stadium, for sure. That's like one of them at the very least. Do I want DCE in this list? I don't think there's anything that would profit off of DCE in this list at this point in time, so I'll cut it for now. I can only think of Turffield Stadium for some reason. There's probably more. I can probably search for them, by the way. If I just do stadium and then type grass. Wow, it doesn't even find them. Crazy. If I copy paste this, it probably doesn't work. Yeah. Even if I do this, it doesn't work. I mean, like, yes, Forest of Giant Plants is here. I have Energy Trance, right? Yes. I do. I have Leaf Trance, which this is the one that you mean, right? You move grass energy attached to one of your Pokemon to another of your Pokemon. That's the one you meant, I'm assuming. I have Skyfield. I don't think I want Area Zero with this specifically. Do I want Area Zero in this list? Probably not. I probably want Rescue Scarf in this list for like a little bit of energy recovery. Oh wait, this doesn't recover attached cards. Never mind. As long as you have a good way to get energy off the Teal Mask. Yeah, we have this. And I guess I could include the Celebration Wind Shaman, which just has like an on-play Pokepower that you can move energies. As many energies as you want from one place to the other, or like from any place to any place. That's probably fine as a one-off. Surely there's like level X Pokemon that are good grass type. Level X. Tangrove. That seems kind of mid. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack during his or last turn, each of Shaman's attack does 60 more damage to the active. That's kind of mid, honestly. I mean, the Leafeon has acceleration. The Iron Leaf's Weirder V? Oh yeah, those are good shouts. I mean, you mean the Iron Leaf's EX, I'm assuming. If I do Weirder V, it's maybe better if I also include DCE. Probably worth it. Sinistra and Sinistra EX. Yeah, those are actually not bad shouts. Yeah, I need energy recovery, so let's go for energy recycler. Sure. Do we want Max Rod in this list? Maybe we do. Maybe we want Max. Oh wait, no, we have recovery with this. Yeah, we put the energy back here, so just energy recycle is probably fine, because also Revitalizer and Night Stretcher and Rescue Stretcher. Maybe a Super Rod instead of the Rescue Stretcher, but That's the energy recovery. Yeah, I think I still do want an energy recycler. Just one, just in case. Wait, what did you say from automod? I don't even see a message caught in automod. Or am I tripping? Rod over recycler, surely? Yeah, probably. Rod. Energy recycler. Probably should include good rod as well. It's solid. Surely there's more grass synergy, right? Surely there's more grass synergy that I'm just not thinking of. Gave me an automod message when he said the leaves and deer message. Oh, okay. Oh, Gardenia's Vigor, you're right. That is indeed synergy. Wait, does Eco Gym work with this? Not really, right? Yeah, whenever an attack, Poké-Power, or trainer card discards another player's... Oh wait, this doesn't even work the way I thought it would work. Oh, this doesn't even work the way I thought it would work. It's like energy protection rather than preserving your own energy, because it says another's. Yeah, there is more to think of. Hold on. There should be some more in this doc. There should be some more in this doc. Not here. So these are like some... Oh yeah, wait. Radiant Venusaur is actually... Well, Radiant Venusaur is probably not great here. Actually. Radiant Venusaur is actually probably not that good here. But we can consider the Lilligant V-Star. The one that searches your deck for up to 5 in combination of Grass Pokemon and Grass Energy. That's an interesting V-Star power for sure. There's no V-Pokemon in here other than Eldegoss, so... Interesting. Let's just see how many V-Pokemon there are that are Grass type. Other than this. There's a Leafeon V-Star, which is just a Gust on a V-Star attack. V-Star power at least. This is terrible V-Star power. Shaman is healing. It's kind of bad. Yeah. Maybe it's at this angle. I think it's at that angle. Do we go this? Maybe. I'll add it in for now. Or maybe Leafeon V, because this is... Well, this accelerates energy but from deck, but it's ends. Terra-Fighting Choice Bands. Upper hand is Hisuian Lilligant. Yeah. Hell yeah. Maybe Rilla VMAX. It swings for 280. Probably not. Wait, there's more. I could include a Dragonite EX. I could include the Dragonite EX with Defen. That's an interesting one. Regular Lilligant gives damage boost. Oh yeah, that's an interesting one. This one, the baby Lilligants. Which ones did I add here? Forget Terra Cherrim, Eldegoss. Oh, Execute! Right. Execute. Well, is Execute the GOAT in this list? Because there's not really that many cards that discard other cards. There's like Quick Ball and Ultra Ball, and that's it. It's like just Quick Ball and Ultra Ball, and Guzman Hala. We don't have Budu. You're so right. Did I not include Budu in this? No, I didn't. That's crazy. Although I think I might have made it before Prismatic came out. I actually have every other card that's here. Maybe we should look in colorless. Is this a Pidgeot deck? This might be a Pidgeot deck, especially if we have the Meganium. Do we need Maractus? I don't know if we need Maractus. Hold on, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna peek in this list, the Glaceon list, to see if there's anything cool. I mean, like the Leafeon, Iron Leaves. Yeah, okay, no. Not really. Maybe. Trying to look if there's any other grass-related stuff. But it doesn't seem like there is. I mean, I'll add Maractus for now, and I think this is probably a Pidgeot list. So let's do quick search, airmail, clutch, quick search, and then call for family, and corner. The real grass synergy got banned. You're not wrong. Maybe Decidueye. Which Decidueye specifically? This one? Probably not this one. Or you mean Decidueye EX, the one that switches? This is interesting for sure. Or do you mean this one that puts like 2 damage counters on something? Wait, put 3 cards from your discard pile into your hands? That's actually not a bad. That's actually not a bad GX attack. That's definitely interesting. Definitely interesting. There's still 2 tools in this deck. I think I want to add Stealthy Hood, Safety. I think I probably want to put Arven in this list. GX is just Meowscarada, but not shit. Yeah, and it has a usable GX attack actually. There's quite a bit of retreat costs in this deck, so probably Fluffy Berry as well. And maybe Air Balloon. Probably Air Balloon. I feel like I want more stadiums. This is probably an Artisan list, maybe. And maybe it's a contest hall list. Can't go wrong with Artisan, exactly. I might actually make this an Area 0 list as well, because we do want that. Oh, this is the other synergy. This is basic Grass and Lightning Pokemon, take 30 less damage from the opponent's attacks. Cycling Roads, I'm not sure if I want to discard the energies. But I can put it in for now. We can always cut cards later. But if I want Area 0, then yeah, that's what I wanted to check. I remember now. If there's any more Grass Terra Pokemon that are worth running. Can't run Frostlass, can't run Espafra. Fortress is not banned anymore. That's the thing. Fortress is not banned. I could include Fortress. Redgren would be nice to draw, but then it's not a grass box anymore. Then it's grass water, and then I might as well make it grass water dark with the at that point I might as well make either grass water dark with Glaceon or grass water lightning with Terapagos. So, you know, struggles. Big struggles. That's kind of like the idea that I was thinking of. But like, Fortress is not a bad shout, right? Because that's unbanned. This is actually really nice acceleration. Do I want more Energy Search? I have Professor's Letter. Is there any... Do I want Vessel in the list is what I'm trying to ask myself here. You're just thinking through grass decks you've played in the past. Yeah, that's fair. I should probably actually fill out the evolution lines for all these Pokemon. Is there like a good Pineco printed somewhere? I don't think so. Let's just add this one. I need a good third wig at the very least. Let's do this one, so because it's buffinable. AKA Toadscruel, Yon Mega Break, and Sinistra. Yeah, I don't think this is a Yon Mega Break list. I feel like you probably have like... I mean, it could be a Yon Mega EX list. We could add this. But I don't think this is a break list whatsoever, because this feels way too awkward. Because you have to have the same number of cards in your hand as all your other opponents, which is impossible. It's only good with the stadium. Yeah. Let's see. Like, this is interesting, right? At the very least. Like, the Yon Mega EX is interesting at least. I'll add it for now. We should probably add Chikoritas and Meganiums. This is a promo only. That's so sad. I mean, this is the best Chikorita by far. This is probably a good Chikorita. Let's just do these three. I don't think any of the other Chikoritas are great, but let's take a read. That's terrible. Terrible. Not the worst. That's okay. Not engaged is interesting, I guess. Ass on run that. It's kind of bad. Oh, wait, hold on. That's not worth. Not worth. No. I mean, this is a switching one. I think I got the best three just by clicking recents, which is crazy. Some bay leaves. I need like at least 2 bay leaves. Oh, I need rare candy in this list probably. Probably need rare candy in this list, let's be honest. There's so many stage 2s. Let's see, is there any good bay leaf? That's so much text. That's just healing, okay. Poison. I mean, this is not the worst. I don't think I want this bay leaf because I want a level ballable bay leaf at the very least, I think. So like, this one seems alright. What does this one say? Search your deck for an evolution card. Oh, that's actually not bad. Yeah. Yeah, I think 2 bay leaves is probably fine. Maybe 3. It's probably 3 actually. Oh, and I should add Surprise Time Machine if we're running this thick of a Meganium line. Let's add at least a Trico. What would be the best Trico? That's actually not bad. Search your deck for a grass Pokemon. Not the worst. I'll do it for now. Is this Call for Friends? Search for basic Pokemon. 40. Pass. Oh, this is Trico Star. Yeah. It's kind of bad. Ooh, Paralysis, interesting. What is on coin flip? Yeah, I think I got the best Trico. Use Rillaboom, you want Hydrapple EX line? Oh, right, Hydrapple exists. You're right. Probably don't want this one, but I do want a Hydrapple EX. Which means I want a Diplin at the very least, I think. Probably use a coded attack one, I think. Maybe Festival Lead Diplin? I think coded attack is probably more useful. And then, is there a good Applin from the past? I mean, this is like not the worst thing in the world. And synergy is there, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Is there maybe like a good Appleton we can combo with this? No. Good Flapple. I mean, not the worst thing in the world, but do I want a Torterra level X? Because I do have the normal Torterra. I think I'll just add it in for now. Where did it go? Oh, it's there. Okay. Let's add a Yanma for this. Is that the best Yanma? Or is each of your opponent's Pokemon? Ooh, that's interesting. Super Speeds. Scout. I think I prefer that one actually. Reveals hands. Oh no, this one's the best. This is Free Retreat. Free Retreat Yanma, let's go. Hell yeah. Supersonic, Sonic Boom. Wait! Draw 2 cards, you may switch Yanma with one of your bench Pokemon. That's interesting. I think this one's better. Still. Search a deck for up to 4 different types of basic energy cards, show them to your opponent and put them in your hands. Interesting. Ability, Shockwave, flip a coin. If heads, this attack does 10 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. Then if your opponent has any bench Pokemon, he or she chooses one of them and switches it with defending. Okay. Yeah, no, this is probably the best Yanma. Yeah, Dragonite EX is funny. Not sure if it's worth though. At least I can also run Colorless Dratini if I want to. Like this one. This is a Retreat Lock Dratini that's actually not the worst. Can't use that one. Because they have all sorts of weird costs. Yeah, this is probably the best Dratini then. Do I want a Dragonair? That's rough. I'm not sure if I want one. Oh, actually not a terrible one. I probably want a grass searchable Dragonair because I have Turfield, so probably want a grass Dragonair anyway. Oh, this is Dark Dragonair. Okay. This is Grand Tree. Oh yeah, we don't even have an A-Spec. This is definitely a Grand Tree list. Yeah. 100%. This is also a Ninja Boy list, is what I'm asking myself. It's definitely a Ball Guy list. I should do that. Let's see. Definitely add a Toad School, at least one. Is this one the best? It's probably this one, because it's Sleep. Not sure about Cherim anymore, but I'll add Cherubi for now. We'll just think about what to cut later. What does this Cherubi say? Oh, that's actually not terrible. I mean, the rest of the Cherubis are terrible, so... I mean, that's Sleep. That's Sleep. Healing. That's attachments, but only to Cherubi. For the Beautifly, yeah, I think the Beautifly is probably not worth it. Like, draw until 6 is nice, but I don't think we're ever gonna have that low amount of cards in our deck in our hands other than late game. It feels like a deck that, because you have so many Pokemon, you probably have a lot of cards in hand, so Beautifly. Yeah, exactly, the Grass Special Energy stink a lot. We do want a Grookey for the Rilla at the very least. Is there any great Grookey? Not really. Let's just do this one. And then a Thwackey. Do I want this one? Yeah. Sure. Free retreats. For Lilligant, let's add at least a Petalil. They're a good Petalil. Probably not a great one. Let's do the one that can hide. And with the Festival Grookey, if you use Hydrapple. Oh yeah, but I also didn't put in the Festival Diplin. I did the coded attack one. That's probably an idea, but I already have so many stadiums that like, is that worth it to do with the stadium? You know, is that worth it? Is what I'm trying to ask myself. I'll add it, sure. I can always remove it later or like change it later. Do this discipline and this twacky, and then remove this twacky, this discipline. Sword Shield, since she knows a good draw option. Yeah, that's interesting. For sure. If I add that in, this is probably actually a fan rotom list if I'm thinking about it. If I add the Cinccino in. Let's see, what's the best Minccino for this? Probably Call for Family, let's be honest. I don't think I want anything else other than Call for Family. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the BRS Call for Family one. Then we add Rotom, yeah. If we're Rotom, we might as well add Noctowl. I mean, we do have 2 Terra Pokemon, but this one goes Boom. Yeah. Probably fine if we add Noctowl. And then, which Hutu do I want? Do I want this one? I mean, Item Lock 1 is funny. I think I just want this one, right? Not sure, actually. Let me think. Yeah, probably Item Lock. Yeah, we do have Meganium to power it up. You're right, you're right. There's way too many Pokemon in this list. We need to cut on this for sure. Is there anything that doesn't have any like prevos yet? Yeah, there's no Poltergeist yet. I mean, there's only 2 different Poltergeists. This one is the better one for sure, but there's 2 of them, so I'd probably add 2 of those as well. Oh, the Decidueye as well. I don't think I wanted the Decidueye. Yeah, we are spitballing. Maybe I wanted the Decidueye. What's the best Rowlet? The Birdkeeper one? Can we go to Birdkeeper Rowlet? Maybe. Yeah, exactly. Make a deck out of it later. I can go to Hide and Seek Rowlet, I guess. Or the Birdkeeper one. Both are funny. Yeah, Birdkeeper Crisis Punch is a very funny combo, so I guess I will go do that. And then for Dartrix, I don't think there's any great Dartrix. I'm gonna be honest, like it's probably this one, the first one that I clicked. Although this for 1 grass can force active out. This for 1 grass actually does better things than this, so I think I like this one because it's still level ball searchable. Where did the Decidueye go? I don't see him anymore. Oh, here he is. Okay. I feel like there's way too little supporters in this list. And actually, maybe not. This is... How many supporters? This is 10 supporters. That's actually probably fine. This list definitely has too many stadiums. I know that for a fact. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I feel like we probably gotta remove more Pokemon, if anything, from this. Although some Pokemon also double as like trainer cards. If you think about it, like the Ditto kind of counts as like a Fortin-ish. This counts as like recovery for basic Pokemon. If you think about it. This is kind of like Gust, if you think about it. Hard to decide. I think I'm definitely cutting the baby toad screw. I think I'm cutting the entire toad screw line here. Actually, calling the rush is such a good attack. Maybe I'll keep this for now. Man, this is why I hate deck building for Commander. My brain has too many ideas, and then I have a 130 Pokemon card deck, and then I have to think about, oh, what do I want to keep? I don't even know what I want to make the Commander. Is my issue here. I think it's probably got to be Teal Mask, right? It's got to be Teal Mask over Bond that I have to make the Commander. It has to be. Like there's no way Teal Mask is not the Commander. It just gives me an extra card on turn 1. Removing Pokemon is lame. I prefer to have 264 card deck. Hey, maybe we can make Commander Plus with a 200 card deck and then 20 prize cards. Yeah, Teal Mask has to be the Commander. Yeah, you're so right. I think I got this Baby Sinistcha for sure, and then this Poltergeist. I think just Sinistcha EX is fine. So yeah, turn 1 going first, Fan Rotom, Noctowl, follow up, yeah. I think I'm keeping the 3-3 Meganium line as well. Feels way too good. Baby Sinistcha is the only good single prize option you have? No? That's not true. I have Evo Press Torterra. And I have the Sceptile. Those are good single prize options. Diplin technically kind of is. I think that's where it ends. Yeah, I guess Torterra level X is kind of an extension of Torterra. I have the Genesect. There's a few single prize options. You're a big Sinistcha believer. It's better than Torterra. The thing is, I like having Torterra because we already have the Grotle, if you know what I mean. That's kind of like the main reason why I like it. But like Grovyle is... Do we need both Grovyle and Grotle, is what I'm trying to say to myself. Grovyle is livable, searchable, and Grotle isn't. So it's interesting. The thing is, if I remove this Torterra, I have like way too little Gust. Because I have 1 Gust card in this deck right now. Which is only Guzma. And I have like PS Seeker. So I can technically Guzma twice. I think I do want a hand extension in the list. For sure. Fairfield fills in for one of them. Got the Tort line. Yeah, okay, yeah. You're probably right. That's like -4 cards already. Let's see. Do I really need 2/2 Pidgeot? I can go technically 2/1/2, maybe. Especially, I could probably skimp on some of the stage 1s because I have the Meganium, the quick ripening herb Meganium, which can immediately make a basic into stage 2, like even on the turn that I bench it. We don't need Fortress. Yeah, if Teal Mask is our commander, that means we always have access to our Terra, so we don't need the extra Terra option from Fortress, you're right. Oh wait, there was Terra EX here. Yeah. Good. I really like Cherium, but I'm not sure if it fits in this list specifically. The Cherium. You know what I mean? Like, infinite acceleration to non-rule box is really good. Especially if you have Leaf Trance to like move it to other places. If you know what I mean. I'm not sure if I should cut Cherim or not. Like I'm starting to think like Rillaboom is probably obsolete if I have Cherim, if you know what I mean. Although that's Searcher's deck, this is from attaches from hand, yeah. That is different. Yeah, you're right. We definitely don't need this Dragonite. The Lilligant also feels very cuttable. Yeah, Hydrapple also feels like overkill. Which means we're also... which means before I do anything else, I should do the other Thwackey. At the very least, and then remove Festival Grounds at the very least. We're already at 115. Don't need the Decidueye. I like the Decidueye though. We don't have any other GX attacks to use. And Decidueye's GX attack is actually fairly solid. Rillaboom is cuttable, yeah. I really like Decidueye though. I don't think I want to cut Decidueye. I feel like Maractus is probably cuttable, especially if I have Corner Pidgey. I have Corner Pidgey and Clutch Pidgeotto, so I think Maractus is fairly cuttable. Maybe this Kricketot is cuttable? I mean, Searcher deck for 3 grass Pokemon is insane. Heal Masculus attaches effectively 4 energy per turn. Yeah, but that's if you have the doubling Meganium in play. That's if you have that in play. If we don't have that yet, I think Cherrim is a very good low to the ground early game 8 for that. If you catch my drift. You don't think we need any additional acceleration than Gardenia? So you think we don't need Cherrim? That's crazy. You saying that we don't need Cherrim is actually crazy, in my opinion. What does his attack do again? Oh yeah, it's not bad. Like, Gardenia feels very clunky if we have Cherrim, is more or less what I'm trying to say. Yanmega is early game option, right? Oh, right, we have Yanmega. But that means it does have to retreat. Yanmega's probably better than Cherrim, yeah. I love Cherrim, but Yanmega is probably better. Do we want Jet Energy? If we have Yanmega, we probably want Jet Energy. So we can go like retreat and then attach Jet to the Yanmega so that we can immediately swing with Yanmega potentially. Yeah. Like I said, Lilligant feels very cuttable. Not sure about cutting the Shaman yet. The V-Star is good, but 4 Steel Stone is probably fine. The attack is kind of useless. We do only have 1 Pokemon V. No, we have 2. We have Weirder as well. Yeah, that's fine. That's probably fine. Yeah. We have Weirder and Eldegoss for Steel Stone, so we Gucci. Is there any other Pokemon that does damage based on how much energy is attached to both actives or your active? Or because I can think of a few, but those are like either Psychic type or another type. They're not Grass type. I don't think we should cut into items anymore, right? Like, there's probably a stadium we can cut, but... Oh yeah, Energy Crush Leafeon. Yeah, that might actually be that might actually be a good shout. It's all your opponent's Pokemon. It's not your own. It's not your own. Unfortunately. I mean, there's a Leafeon level X, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, we already talked about this one, which is also extra acceleration. We don't need extra acceleration, actually. Grass actually has pretty good acceleration options, not gonna lie. Alright, I'll probably refine this more later. Although we're actually really close to a hundo. I'll probably refine this anyway. Like, is 14 the way we want? We can go 12 probably. 12 is probably still fine, right? Really wants energy discarding like Baby Cinny. Yeah. Yeah. You're kinda right. If we really want energy discarding, we can add Turo. We can add Turo as extra energy discard option. I think Turo is not bad regardless, so it can also help us escape some retreat lock outside of Guzma. I think Turo is not bad in this list. Especially since you can just Turo a stage 2 Pokemon, bench the basic, and then use Quick Ripening Herb to get the stage 2 back again immediately. That's something you can do in mid or late game. Which is fucking gross, by the way. Dude, the Quick Ripening Herb Meganium is actually so disgusting. It's crazy. Do I have enough Pokemon recovery? I think I do. Because I have Revitalizer, I have Night Stretcher, I have Rescue Stretcher, and I have Time Space Distortion. I think that's fine. And I also have Ditto. Actually, talking about Ditto, it would be really funny if I ran this Ditto. Ditto-bolic Ditto. It would be really funny if I ran this one. I don't think we have the room for it though, but it's really funny. Like, oh, I play Skyfield, so I can bench 8 Pokemon, but you guys can't. You guys still can only bench 4. Hehehe. Yeah. Definitely want a big bench. Definitely wants a big bench. But Ditto only puts opponent's bench size to 4, not your own. This Ditto, just so you know. Yeah, exactly. That's cool stuff. I'm trying to think of what tools I want to cut, or tool singular. I think Stealthy Hood is probably fine to cut at this point. Like, it makes me a little weaker to Disruption, but sure, whatever. 5 tools feels like alright, feels like kind of a sweet spot. Shaman is redundant, but what if, like, Meganium, the Leaf Trance Meganium is prized and we're just cooked? And we need like one big reorder. Oh, whoops. Probably one bench barrier. Oh, right. There's this Vespiquen that prevents all damage done to your benched grass type Pokemon by attacks. If we run the Combe, that's probably fine. I think that's probably the best bench barrier we can use. Shaman is indeed kind of redundant. Probably this Vespiquen is probably it. I can't think of a better bench barrier Pokemon that's either grass or colorless, if I'm gonna be honest. I might be wrong. Yeah, we can probably make this a different Rowlet and then just go yeet the Crisis Punch and yeet the Bird Keeper. I'm not sure if I want to yeet the Bird Keeper. But I mean, the synergy is there though. We can also go Blindside, you know? TM Blindside with the Bird Keeper and the Decidueye GX proc. No. Need Boss and Lysander? I mean, I have Guzma. I have VS Seeker for Guzma, and I have Pow. I probably need like one of the two. Probably don't need both. I like this version actually. Probably don't need both. Deck wants Mega Gust. Yeah, if we want Mega Gust, then I'm trying to think. There was more item-based Gust, right? No, that's Cross Switcher and Custom Catcher. Those are not viable in this format. Could go Pokemon Catcher, maybe. An interesting thought. Might be able to get away with not using Grand Tree. I feel like Grand Tree is a must with this list. We've cut down huge on lines, yes, but we still have like 3, 4, 5. Like we have 6 stage 2 lines, and then the 7th one we don't really want to make to stage 2 immediately. But that's like 6 stage 2 lines. That's still a lot of lines. And that's not even counting the stage 1 Pokemon that we have. So I think I think we don't cut down on Grantry. If anything, I probably cut one of both N or Rocket's admin. I like the Decidueye though. I don't want to cut the Decidueye. You think it's cuttable? I also think it's cuttable, but I don't want to cut it. That's the thing. Because I like the Decidueye. Not as a Pokemon, but like this card. I mean, I don't hate the Decidueye as a Pokemon, but I feel like we can probably cut one of N or Rocket's admin. What math does it fix? I don't know. It could fix any math, because any Pokemon could see play in this format. If you think about it. But also this can just like snipe down a Budew over the course of 2 turns, for example. It doesn't even have to fix math if you can just snipe away at tiny babies to pressure your opponent into evolving them into their multiprizers. And a GX attack is really, really useful. I do like to make decks that can use their GX attack if possible. So, I mean, there's also Tsareena GX, you know? Your opponent discards 4 cards from their hand. That's a funny GX attack. There's probably more GXers. Maybe there's a better one. We never really want to evolve into him. Sceptile's cuttable. I mean, the Sceptile is a good like attacker, but you're kind of right. Like if this is like if we are on 101 and this is still in, I will cut it, I think. But it's a good single price option, you know. Do I want one of these as a tag team? Like, do I want one of the tag teamers? Do we run Pheromosa is the question. Pheromosa is interesting. Because this can like do big damage in late game and it can still attack turn 1 going first. Definitely interesting. Galissapod GX was alright, I remember. Yeah, well, first impression, not because of the GX attack. Buzzmosa can be interesting. Like Buzzmosa is, you're right, Iron Leaf is very cuttable. Buzzmosa is very cool because we just need 4 grass energy and we can just take 4 prizes off of a 50 HP Pokemon. And this can also KO 70 HP Pokemon if we use it with the Decidueye. Like, I like Buzzmosa actually. I will put that in the deck. This also can do 30 and then 32 one bench. It's interesting. Taking extra prizes is useless. Oh yeah, right. We don't take extra lives. You're sorry. You're so right. I forgot that rule in my own format. Jesus Christ. Taking extra prizes is kind of useless, yeah. What does this one do again? This deck does 50 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. At least 2 extra energy. You all damage from all of your Pokemon. That's kind of meh. This one is bad. This is kind of bad. This is also kind of bad, right? Well, this is Shuffle Draw 10 on a GX attack. That's still kind of bad, yeah. What does Virizion do? Put any number of your Pokemon in play and attack all cards attached to them into your hands. This would have been interesting if it was on a trainer card and not on a GX attack. Execute Rowlets. Yeah, it's probably better to run another Rowlet. Rather than this one. Probably better to run this one. Valplume Cess Crystal. You're evil. You're so evil. Like you're so right. I can use Foul Plume. Like I can even do this Foul Plume. You know, make basics not attack. But I have a lot of item cards that I really like playing, so maybe not. I have a lot of item cards that I like playing, so it's more or less it's more likely to be a probably not. Like Disgusting Ball and Vileplume could be an option for sure, because that card is fucking disgusting. Pun intended. Is there any other, like, no, probably not. I mean, I can run Vileplume EX. Vileplume EX is funny, because this is Trainer Lock. If it's inactive, it's Trainer Lock except for supporters, so that's items, tools, and stadiums. That's funny, but it's a 2-pricer. And it's 140 HP, so probably not that great. Sceptile's probably cuttable, yeah. We need to cut, not add. Yes, I know. It's also almost 10 p.m. I need to go raid out. Because I need to sleep for tomorrow. My alarm is going off at like 5:30 tomorrow, so I do actually need to sleep. We're at 102 cards in deck, so I'll get to somewhere. Surely I'll get somewhere with this. Cutting into the Decidueye lines to play. I'm not gonna do that. I'm definitely not gonna do that. I'll go look for someone to raid. I'll go look for someone to raid. I think there's an ad playing right now, which is really fucking annoying. You get 1 extra of your choice. GG's. I can add back the Sceptile if I cut the Decidueye. That's a decision I can think about if I want to. Oh my god, Bedizzle is live. Hell to the yeah. Can I raid here? I can raid here, hell yeah. Make sure to copy one of the messages, guys. Another message from me before we end. There will be no Tuesday stream next week because I'll be away on a seminar from Monday to Friday. So I will only do a weekend stream next week. This is also the reason why I have to get up so fucking early tomorrow. But thanks everyone so much for hanging out with me today. And talk to you guys later. Right? Okay, bye-bye.